Hello and welcome to our third live stream. My name is Bernard, and today we'll be working on once again with our the Shrek project that we worked on in the previous live stream. And yeah, without further ado, let's start working on it. But before we continue, if you guys have any questions or thoughts you want to share with us, don't hesitate to just post it in the chat. I think I'm not even sure if it's working. So let's try to do that first. Let me just open the chat window and I'll try to send a message. Hello world. Let's try that. Okay, so that should show something on the left side of our stream. So you can see that if over here. So that's me. Hello world. And also, if you have super chat, it will show up here, and also your name here if you donated. Okay, so that's one of the things that we worked on yesterday. If you guys joined me yesterday night, we worked on all of this to make everything look better. Okay. So hi Farhan, welcome to the stream. Today we'll be working on once again with our Shopify theme, the Shrek project. If you guys have joined us before, the first and second live stream, we worked on this Shopify theme, and that's what we're going to do today. As I was saying, if you guys have questions, don't hesitate to do that in the chat. Okay. All right. So another thing that I'd like to bring up is I should have also, announced the stream, this event that we're doing right now with our Udemy students, because I haven't announced this. So maybe later on after the stream, I'm going to announce it and we can, bring more people to the stream, and it's gonna be great. But without further ado, let's start working on our project. So previously what we did is we were trying to work on this navigational bar that displays all of the characters from Shrek. You know what? Instead of describing it, let me just show you what it was. So first of all, let's try to log in first, because I don't think we have logged in yet. So, okay, I think I'm getting a problem here because I'm using PowerShell. Let me just, yeah, this one as well. We need to also initiate or start our Tailwind CSS. So let's do that. So npx Tailwind CSS, then the input is going to be coming from the src folder and then the Tailwind CSS file. So src /Tailwind CSS, Tailwind.css, and then the output is going to be saved inside of our assets folder. So the name is going to be theme.css. So let's do that. So theme.css. No, it should be inside of the folder assets. And then the name is theme.css. Okay, sounds good. From Anand Shukla, I hope I pronounced that right. Great video on the Shopify API. I loved it. Thank you so much for the appreciation. I loved it. Thank you so much. I enjoyed honestly working on that video. It was fun. If you noticed, I moved to another apartment and I'm right here. And I'm enjoying my stay so far, and the shooting that I did here is pretty cool. And yeah, I just had fun with it. It was really nice. For Farhan Sheikh, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I apologize if I don't. I am new to Shopify theme development. Should I learn Shopify 2.0 or the old one? I read somewhere that basics are the same. If I'm going to be honest, you don't have to learn the previous Shopify theme architecture. You don't have to do that. You can go straight to 2.0 and it's gonna be okay. Because at the end of the day, you're learning Liquid anyway. So it doesn't matter if you pick 1.0 or 2.0 theme development. It's fine. So, but to summarize, the Shopify theme 2.0 is just JSON templates. At the end of the day, you're just working with JSON templates. and liquid, of course. So yeah, if you're new to Shopify theme development, my suggestion, the thing that I want you to do is just learn liquid as much as you can. And of course, learn the basics of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then when you combine all of those skills, yeah, you'll be able to create a Shopify theme. Okay? All right, so keep going with that question. If you guys have more, bring it to the chat and I'll try to answer them. Awesome. So what I want to do next is to, once again, run the Tailwind CSS. So let's do the watch flag so you don't have to do it again and again and again. And that should start our Tailwind CSS. There you go, rebuilding. There you go, perfect. Next is the Shopify theme dev command. We should start that. So here, we should be inside of our Shopify themes folder or the live WeeklyHow. So let's do that. So let's change our current directory to live WeeklyHow. And then here we're going to do the Shopify theme dev. Okay. So Shopify theme dev command. And that should ask us to log into our development store. Or at least that's what I'm expecting. Or no, since I already logged in before, the history is there, then it's just going to use the previously used development store. And that should generate or create all of these URLs that you can use. Okay, so we have here the local URL, localhost. We have the theme editor, and we have the share that you can use. You can share with other users or people. Okay, so let's use the localhost URL, and it's going to ask me to provide a password. Usually this happens because your store is protected. So what you want to do is go to your development store, log in, and then just open the settings and find the password. Okay, so let me just do that. I'll open my account and the stores, and it should be the WeeklyHow live coding session. I'll log in. Okay, so there you go. We are logged in. We can just open the online store. It's not going to be under settings. Let me just correct myself. Should be under online store and the preferences. And if you scroll down, you'll find there your password. So this one. This is the password that you're going to put in that input field. Okay? So press enter and that should open your project or your development store. There you go. So we're here now. This is the project that we worked on last week or in the previous stream. So we have the project called the Shrek project. Thank you so much to our shout out to the previous members for, because we were trying to brainstorm ideas, what kind of project we're going to create, and we came up with this. And the theme is basically Shrek. So it's gonna be fun. We're working on the navigational bar. Next up, we'll be working on the hero section, the collections, and everything is just gonna be about Shrek. So looking forward to make progress with this project, honestly. But previously we stopped. I think the stream ended around the navigational bar, and I'd like to fix this because I don't want it to be like this. As much as possible, let's honestly not use JavaScript. I figured out a way to display the drop-down menu by using just pure CSS. We don't need to do this. We don't need to use document query selector all just to display this. I don't think it's necessary. So let's just use CSS, okay? So if you think about it, the drop-down menu is not displayed by default, correct? So what you can do is, if you hover this item here, this menu item, it displays that drop-down menu. So that is it. That's basically how it's gonna be. So let's go back to our header.liquid and let's take a look at that drop-down container. So we have this that displays the links inside of the drop-down container. And by default, this is going to be hidden because we have the display none. But if we hover this button here, this is going to be displayed. So what we want to do is we're going to create basically a container for these two. And then I'm going to reference this and give this like a hover like class or utility class, right? So if we hover this, it should change something, and that is going to be the display. It's going to be blocked instead of hidden, if that makes sense. But let's try and do that. So let's open the tailwind.css and let's do it here. We're going to create a component, basically. So add. It's not going to be like that. Let's open the tailwind CSS just to get an idea of like how to do this component. So components, not that, should be the documents. And let's do, it should be configuration. Let's take a look at this one. All right, so we have all of this, but you can also create another set of directives to customize the component. So there should be a way to do that from what I can remember. But honestly, you can also just do it here directly. So say for example, we're going to create a class called dropdown button, and then it's going to have like a hover, right? And then we're going to take a look at a how do you call this? So if we hover that button, it should change the display to block. So what I want to do is let's put this two together, and we already have a div here with a class relative. So let's just add here a class and let's call it dropdown, like that. And then let's copy that and let's use this. So that's going to be this entire thing. If we hover this, then we're going to select the div with a drop-down container. So should be div with an ID of drop-down container, just like that. And then what are we going to do? We're going to change the display, right? And it should be to block. At least that's the idea. So let's see what will happen. If I refresh this, if I hover this, nothing happens yet. And that is because, let's just get rid of this. And let's also delete that JavaScript file, which is this one. Let's remove that. Save. Let's refresh. And it's not yet working. Let's open the elements. Okay, so we have a comment from Farhan. What type of content are you looking to create in 2024, such as more Shopify app development or theme development? That's a good question, honestly. So next year, what I want to do is I want to cover not just Shopify app development, but also theme development. Honestly, I've went far from Shopify in the last couple of months, if you guys have noticed that. But next year, I will try to also cover more of Shopify. I will try at least. But obviously, I'm not going to promise because I also want to do the things that I enjoy. You know, like things like, you know, creative, if that makes sense. So I want to do that next year. But before I even make those promises, I'm going to cover this question specifically. I'm going to talk about this in the very last video that I will be making this year. Since if you guys have been with me for years, for more than a year, then you would know that I make videos every year and talking about, what happened this year and what did I achieve? Was I able to, reach the things that I planned, right? So I'm going to make that video before this year ends, and you will see what I'm thinking for the next year and what I plan and what I want to do and what happened. So we're going to recap basically about everything that happened and what's to come. And I look forward to that. But thank you so much for the question. From Anand, can you zoom in more? The codes are hard to see. I apologize. So let's do that. Is that better? I think it's too big now. Let's try to make this smaller. Okay, is that better? Let's hide that terminal. We don't need that honestly anymore. Okay. From Soham Paul. Hello world. Hello, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for joining us. I also want to say thank you for joining Farhan, Anand, and the rest of you watching. Thank you so much for joining. Now I just want to say that this stream is just going to end around, let me just check my clock. So we are already 6 here in France, so I'll be leaving around an hour. So this is not going to take a long time, but I'm going back around 10 p.m. So we're going to continue this in after 2 hours when I end the stream. So if you have time, if you want to still join us, you can do that. But I just want to mention this because I have some errands to do today and I'll need to do that before doing all this. So I apologize if there's going to be a cut between this stream. I apologize. But yeah, thank you so much for the chat. Thank you so much for the questions. It's great. I hope you guys are looking forward to what we will be cooking together. Okay, is it better now? I hope it's better. I hope you guys can see it better now. Awesome. So, okay. I just want to maximize the output honestly first. This one. Let's not do it here. And let's take a look at the navigation because we have that. We have this. We have the home and this with a class drop down. And what we're looking for is this div with a drop down container ID, right? And if we hover this, it's not really doing anything, right? It should do something to this div. It should change the display to block. If that makes sense. So let's figure it out. What are we missing? What are we missing? Instead of, probably we're not supposed to be using that selector that I was doing before. This. Maybe we're not supposed to use this. Because since this is going to be like a direct selection, we're looking at this class. If you hover it, then we want to select this selector. And we should change the display to block. Let's try that. In life, it's all about testing. This is what I understood. Let's try to refresh this. And let's take a look at this. So it's going to be the same. It's still not doing anything. Okay. Perhaps I'm doing it wrong. Okay, the question, I barely see the questions anymore. What is the difference between ThemeKit and Shopify CLI? Great question. Very nice question from Soham Paul once again. Well, the difference between ThemeKit and Shopify CLI is Shopify CLI is more than just Shopify theme development. You can use Shopify CLI to create Shopify themes, Shopify apps, Shopify app extensions, and other features you can think of. Whereas ThemeKit is just made for theme development, right? But obviously, there's more to ThemeKit as well. ThemeKit, I like ThemeKit. At the same time, I also like Shopify CLI. There's like a love and hate relationship between these two. What I like, I always say this. What I like about ThemeKit is when you generate a new Shopify theme, everything is just, from scratch. It's not pre-made. There's no such thing as like JSON templates. It's just the basic theme that you can start with. Whereas with Shopify CLI, it's going to start with Shopify Done, which is if you're not really familiar with Liquid or theme development, you'll be lost, right? I mean, technically, if you use ThemeKit to generate a new Shopify theme, you'll see the same thing, but it's not as overwhelming as Shopify Done, if that makes sense, right? So yeah, I hope that answers the question, the difference between ThemeKit and Shopify CLI. Again, ThemeKit specifically for the old architecture, 1.0, Shopify theme 1.0, whereas Shopify CLI is focusing on Shopify theme 2.0. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question, Soham. Where are we? So let's go back to VS Code and try a different approach. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, which I know I'm doing it wrong. So let's first see if we hover this, or maybe it's not supposed to be like this. Maybe it's supposed to be double. No, it's not. It's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be like this. Hold on. Let me just see if I'm doing it wrong. No, it was right. I know it was right. So it's supposed to be like this. Now let's change the background color to aqua. And that should confirm that I'm doing it right. There you go. It's working. If we hover it, it changes the color. But that's not what I want. What I want is to change the display to block. Okay? Let's get rid of this. Maybe this is the problem. Save that. Let's go back here. And now let's select the div with a drop-down container. So drop-down container. And then we're going to change the display to block. Let's get rid of that. But also let's set this to, let's go back to that browser. So it's displayed. Let's go back here and let's select the div with an ID, drop down container, and set the display to none, just like that. And now if we reload this page, that should be hidden now. But if we hover this, there we go. Now this is displayed. But now the problem is if we get rid of our cursor under or outside of this menu item, then it also disappears, which is not what we want, right? So how can we fix that? What is the fix to keep this menu open? That's what we're going to fix next. But let me just open the chat because I think there's a chat. Okay, from Soham once again. Yes, it is really helpful. I agree. How to connect Git with Shopify store? Okay, that's actually a good question. Hold on, let me just get a tissue. And also get a water. That's a very good question. Thank you. We're going to do that later, or we can do it now if you want. We're going to connect our Shopify store to a Git repository. That way, we can fetch or get or pull the changes of that repository that we connected to. From Soham once again, is it actually possible to connect with Git? Yes, it is possible. Absolutely. In fact, it's one of the best way to, it's like continuous integration and continuous development. So you can check the progress or the work in like staging and production before publishing the theme. It's one of the ways. Are you co-streaming? From Paul. Thank you so much for the question. But I'm not sure I understood what you mean by co-streaming. You guys can't see the chat. It should be right here on the left. I'm not sure I understood the question. Do you mean like if I'm streaming not just on YouTube, but also on Twitch? What's wrong with my lips? It's quite dry. Is that what you're trying to say? Please create a full video on this topic. I think I did. I think I do have a video about Git and Shopify theme. I'm not sure. Let's go on YouTube. Where's my browser? Let me just get this. Oh, that's not what I'm trying to do. What happened? Hold on. This one. Let me just double check. I think I did have Shopify Git Hub integration. I did have a video. Look, it's right here. Maybe I can post it in the chat, perhaps. Excuse me. So yeah, you can check it out if you want. But yeah, we already have that video, so good, awesome. Okay, where are we? Awesome, thank you. Great, so now we have this. Now the bug is it's just not showing it like properly. Like we should be able to not hide this. So there's a way to make it work, and that is to instead of doing the hover, if we hover this, change this, but at the same time, if we hover the drop down container, it should also stay instead of hiding. Let's try that. So div drop down container display block. Let's see if that works. Doesn't work. It does work. Oh, it does work. There you go. But now it's not hiding anymore. Let's just double check. No, it's not working. It's broken, basically. So that's not how we should do it. Okay, let me just take a look at a reference. Maybe we can find somewhere online. And that's always a good way, you know, to learn. You're not just like, okay, I'll remember it. I know how you should do it. If you can't figure it out, there's always a way online. Search it. Searching is one of the skills that you should learn as a Shopify theme developer or as a software engineer in general. Searching is one of the keys. So that's one thing that you need to keep in mind all the time. But obviously, learning how things work is important as well. So for example, I have this as a reference, for example, I found online, and we have this, and it's not even using JavaScript, but hold on, did I break it? I think I did broke it. Reload. If we have this, notice that this is the thing that we're trying to achieve. We should be able to keep it opened. But how did they do it? So let's take a look at the titles. It's a title 2. So we have this title 2 with a drop button class. And then inside of it, the drop down is there. So that's what we are missing. The drop down menu should be inside of the button. But the problem is we're not using list. We're using a button. Maybe that's how we should do it. Let's do it as a list instead of a button. Okay? So let's go back here in the header. So we have this list here, or div, that should be a list. Okay, let's do that. Let's change this to list, and this one to a list. And this button here, we should have, instead of a button, perhaps we should not be treating this as a button. And since we have this, let's create an ordered list. So UL, and let's put the 4 inside of that unordered list. Just like that. Now the list should work. Now what we should do next is to move this, or perhaps turn this into a list instead of a button. Okay? Let's do that. Honestly, let's get rid of this. Let's try to make this work, because we have a button with a flex, etc., but we just have this relative. Instead, maybe let's move the relative here. So class, relative, and now we can just move or turn this into a list. And let's get rid of this. And this div, the drop-down container, should be inside of that list, because that's how they did it, the reference that we used. Now this is not going to perfectly display the output, because obviously it's not going to be the same. Okay, but let's see what's going to happen. Okay, so we have that. If we hover, it's not working anymore, and that is because we changed it, right? So let's go back to Tailwind CSS, and we have the drop down container, and it should be, because it's no longer inside of a div. Get rid of that. And we don't have the class drop down anymore. So let's fix that once again. We have this list here with the class. Let's use the drop down. What is the class was again? Just drop down. Okay. Save that. And let's remove the type, because there's no longer a button. Expanded. Let's get rid of that. And header link with child, let's get rid of that. We don't need that anymore, because we're not referencing anymore that attribute. So from Paul Millsap, sorry for missing your question. More serious question: how can we define the scope for an object method closure? How can we define the scope? I'm not sure I follow. You mean in liquid objects, correct? if I understood the question correctly, how can you define the scope that for an object that you created? Can you clarify your question, please? I would be appreciated. Thank you so much. Because I don't think I understood what you're trying to achieve. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just getting lost with the entire thing we're doing. So we have created a list with a drop-down class. Should be good. Let's save this. Okay, there you go. But it's still not working, right? Let's see what's happening in that div. So we have this list with a drop-down class, and we have the drop-down container here. If we hover, its style display should be changed to block. This right here. Currently it's set to none, but it's not changing, which is odd. Let's see the code. If we hover, let's change the drop-down container to block. We have the drop-down class, and we are looking for the drop-down container inside of the drop-down class. And we are changing its display to block. Where's the end of it? It's here. What about the reference that we should be using? Drop down button, hover, a drop down content. Its display is none, absolute, doesn't matter. What about the drop down class itself? This right here. Let's search for that class, that drop down. I don't think it's referencing this class, just drop down. It's not being referenced. So we just have the drop down content, and that's it. If we hover this, it changes it to the block. By default, this is going to be none. Okay. Unless I am missing something. Or perhaps it's because of the distance between that container. Between the container and then the menu item. Let's change display to block. Just so I get the idea of. Okay. Right. So perhaps we need to combine this into a drop-down div, just like what he did here. So we have the list with a drop-down button. It has a title. No, I don't think it's necessary. This thing is not necessary, to be honest. It's just this. Right. Unless we should be adding like a height of auto. And let's change this to none once again. Okay, it's not working. This is gonna be tricky. Submenu, okay, we don't need that. Because what we want to do is just to make it block, correct? But it's not really working. It's one of the things that annoys me, like the CSS thing, right? Maybe I should not be setting it up as hidden. Because we want to change it. Hold on, let me bring it back. And I have an idea. Let's select that div, but we should enable the hover. There you go. So since this is hovered, now this is going to be block. But since we are also going to hover this, I think the problem is the height. Because if this is going to be displayed, the entire list should be maximized, correct? But since this is flex, and there is a gap, okay, there's a gap, that's not a big problem. What did he do to the list? Because we have the drop down content, displays non-absolute, the drop down button. So we have it flexed. Space between, okay, it's not a big issue at all. An ordered list, okay, it's not a big issue too. If we hover, the horizontal should be 100%. That's the thing they were seeing here. Let's try to dissect. Let's dissect this. Okay, so its height is set to 55. Okay. It has a padding. And let's try to enable the hover. No, so that means we don't need to change the height. Now notice that its height is quite relative, or the drop down, if you notice the drop down div, right? It's touching the bottom of this list. So if we shift our cursor here, it should hover down here. That means there should be like a hover to this drop down container. Let's take a look at the code. Maybe it has something more, not just that hover that we searched. Okay. So drop button, okay. Maybe there's more. That's the horizontal line. The drop down button, that's what we're doing. The sub menu trigger hover menu, that's what's inside of it. This thing, that's sub menu. So we're not gonna cover that yet. Okay. Not, not it. Socials. I don't think that's what we need. Okay, maybe it's just the distance between our containers. Maybe that's it, because it's a bit distance, right? So notice that there is a gap between these two, and that's what we should avoid. Otherwise, it's not gonna work. So let's go back to header.liquid, and this drop-down container here does have a margin. Let's get rid of that. As much as possible, we want that container to touch that button, that menu item. Correct? Yeah. Let's get rid of that. Thank you so much, Anand. That's what we should do. What else? Maybe we're missing something. Left, it's fine, I assume. Top, full, that's also fine. This is just pushing it to the top. Screen, the width. Yeah, maybe it's this one. Let's do that. But what about the list? This. Maybe it does have a margin. It does have this gap, but it's horizontal. And that is fine. And that's for the SVG. It's a thing. Font, leading 6. Okay, that's fine. Okay, let's take a look. There you go. Now there's no longer a distance between these two. So we can now access the drop down. Perfect. Now let's fix this problem that now it's a column, and it's a column now instead of like a row. Or I think I should say the opposite. It's now a row instead of a column. So where is that? Now that we have created this as a list, we have this relative, and we are going to loop through the link, this link right here. I think it's because of this, right? So let's move I think this should be in here, or perhaps let's just move all of these classes here. There you go. Perfect. Now we have it back. It's perfect. Maybe we can add a padding to that. So where is the list? Let's try to indent this back so it's cleaner. And add a margin, not a margin, but a padding around here. So let's add a padding of X of 2 and a padding of Y of 4. Okay, that's good. But let's also do the same thing for this link without a sublink. Scroll down. We have this inside of the else. Let's add a padding of X of 2 and a padding Y of 4. There you go. Welcome to the stream, Botrix. That's a moderator. It's very late. That's the reason why I changed to stream elements, because when you start the stream, there you go, it's working. But this Botrix, it takes a while. Since when did we start streaming? I believe we started. What time is it now? It's been an hour, so it's already 6:30 here in Paris at least, and it just started joining the channel. Bad, very bad. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. We're back here. We just added a padding of 2 horizontally and vertically 4. There we go, now it's aligned. Awesome. So that's looking much better. We don't need to use JavaScript just to display this, because last time we were using JavaScript and that's very inefficient, or it's very unnecessary. So that's one of the things that you should always keep in mind. Is it necessary to use JavaScript for this or no? And I think that's one of the mistakes I did in the course, because most of the time we don't need to use, I apologize. Excuse me. Most of the time we don't need to use Alpine.js to do those events, right? Like when you hover, you change things. But obviously there are times that you would need those kind of libraries. But with navigations, most of the time CSS would work on its own. So there we go. Now we have this. We can finally continue to more interesting. Let's try to display the login and then the sign out. But we should only display it if our Shopify development store allows us to sign up. So how can we do that? Well, let's go and check out the documentation of Shopify development or developers. Shopify dev. And there should be a documentation here. Perhaps they have an object. I believe there is. There should be an object. And that's going to be the store or the shop. The shop, this one. And it should be the customer accounts enabled. If this is enabled, if this is true, then that means customers can create an account. So let's see. So this object or this property returns true if customer accounts are required to complete checkout. Otherwise, false. You don't need to create an account. Let's take a look at the rest of the properties. Maybe there's more. There's more to it. So password message, okay. That's the name of the shop. Honestly, yeah, we should use this. Instead of displaying just the icon of Shrek, let's use the title, the name somewhere. So let's go back to VS Code. And here, instead of calling it the Shrek project, we're going to use the shop object and then the name property attribute. Save that. Now if we go back to our header, there should be the span with a class SR only with our development store name. So now it's not just Shrek project, it's WeeklyHow live coding session name. So that's how you do it. Okay. We're going to change our development store later on. We're going to make sure that it's Shrek, right? Instead of WeeklyHow live coding session. But you know what I'm trying to say. Okay. Next up, let's do that. The customer accounts optional or enabled. Let's see the value of that. Let's go back to VS Code. And then just at the very top of this header, because we're just gonna delete it anyway, let's use the shop object and then the customer accounts enabled. Let's see what is the value of this. All right, where is my browser? It's set to false. But let's go back to our development store. Hold on. Let's go back here. Let's open the settings, not that settings. Hold on, let me just close that. The settings. Let's open the customer accounts. Accounts in online store and checkout. Customer accounts let customers log in to track orders, and the login experience, they are not required. They are hidden. That means they don't have to create an account. So let's edit this and show the login link in the header of the online store at checkout. Let's check that. And then choose which version of customer accounts to use. New customer accounts, customers will log in with a one-time code sent to their email, or we're going to use classic customer accounts where they'll have like an email and a password. So either of these two would work, but let's select the classic customer account so that we can create the customer page with like email and password. Okay, later on, like in the future. So let's just check that. And we scroll down. We have more settings that we can check out. Customers log in with email, password, they need to create an account. We have a branding, customize classic customer accounts. We're going to check that out later, but for now, let's save this. Let's go back to our development store. Where is my development store? This one. Let's refresh. Now it's set to true. If it's false, then we should not display this login link. Okay? Let's go back to VS Code and do that. I'm going to delete this because we're gonna need to create a condition. So where is that login? So I'm seeing another Shrek project here. We're going to replace that with the shop dot name. All right. Okay, so where is the login? The login is here, but there should be two login. This is for the mobile, and there should be another one for the desktop. I believe it's this one. Yeah, it's this one right here. So we have this div with a hidden class. It's not going to be displayed if this is going to be inside of the if we are viewing the page using a mobile device. It's not going to be displayed. So I don't think it matters. We're just going to create an if, and the condition is if shop dot customer accounts enabled is true, then let's just move this div here. This should be displayed only if the customer accounts is enabled. Let's save, go back to the browser, and it's being displayed because the value of the customer accounts enabled is, that's right, it's true. So let's go back to our development store and see what will happen if we set it to false. Let's go back here, refresh, and there you go. Now it disappeared. We just have our menu. Perfect. Now it's looking great. We can go back and enable it because I want to display another link, and that's going to be the sign in or sign up, not sign in. Okay. Let's go back to VS Code, and it should be under of this anchor tag. So under that, let's create a new anchor tag, but let's change it up. For now, let's use number sign because we're going to use another object to redirect those users to another page using a route object. But for now, let's just use a number sign. Class, let's set the text to small as well. Let's set the font to semi-bold, and let's change the color to, let's change it to white, and I want to give it a background. So BG gray 700, but if we hover, I want to change the background color to gray 900. Okay, and then the text is going to be sign up. Okay, We have that. And if we hover, it's changing things. Let's give it a padding. A padding X of 3 and a padding of Y of... No, let's make it 4 and the PY of 2. Okay, that's all right. Let's give it a rounded. Okay, I think that's all right. Now let's just align this in the center. So we're going to make sure that it's items centered. Perfect. Let's give it a gap too. So gap of X, let's give it a 4. There we go. But the arrow, is that necessary? I don't think so. Let's get rid of that. It's not really appropriate or necessary. Awesome. So I think that's looking good. We have the sign up and we have the login. Now let's learn how to redirect those users or us to the login page and then the registration page. Let's take a look at the route object. Should be here, the routes. If you guys can't see the page, I hope you guys can see that. We're using the routes object and we have all of this URL. We have the account login, we have the account register URL. This is the properties that we're going to use. And if you notice in this object, we have this. So for the account login URL, that's what we're looking for. The account log out, the register URL, that's what we want. Okay. So let's go back to VS Code. And then here in the href, we're going to use that routes and the property called account login URL. And the same thing for the other href. We're going to use the routes and then the account register URL. That's it. That's how easy it is to create these URLs. So now, if we hover this button, notice at the bottom left, I'm not even sure if you guys can see that. It's very, very small. But the bottom left of the video, the stream, you will see the URL login. The sign up as well. Look, the bottom left, there is the account register. So let's try and click that. It should redirect us to the registration page. And we don't have those, right? Because if we go back to our templates, we don't have anything. It's empty. So it's not going to display anything, which is fine. We just have this, and we don't have the section main login. Awesome. So I believe I will be ending the stream here. I apologize. I know I promised that I will be starting this stream on 6:30, but I decided to, out of nowhere, start earlier, and I didn't really explain why. But I needed to do an errand, a pretty quick errand, because I need to get something. But I will be back in 2 hours, which I know it's a long time, but I will be back and we can continue working on this. And perhaps that time we're going to learn how to connect our Shopify development store to a GitHub repository, to a GitHub account. That way we can do all this cool continuous integration, continuous development stuff. Okay? Also, while I will be away, I will be putting an announcement to my Udemy students. Maybe they'll like to join us and they can learn something from all of us. And we can work on this all together. It's gonna be fun. Okay? Thank you so much to everyone who joined me. I know this is pretty quick and I apologize, but we're going to be back in 2 hours. I hope that's okay. Okay, so for those who missed the stream, I'd like to once again say this. We'll be back in 2 hours. It's going to be a long break, and I apologize to that. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much to everyone who joined me today. I appreciate the questions, the time, and yeah, for joining me. Thank you so much. But I'll be back. I'll be back. I promise. Anyway, I'll see you. I'll see you later. Bye bye.